The intuitional science of the Vedas treats spiritual realization as a literal ontological merging of two distinct entities. This presents an immediate paradox. If the entire universe and everything within it is housed within one supreme entity, known as Brahma, why do localized humans experience limitation, separation, and suffering? The texts established that Brahma did not simply construct the universe from the outside. He is both the underlying substance and the activating cause of everything, from inanimate rocks to the cognitive functions of the human mind. Because the human experience of separation is an engineering artifact of the mind, returning to the source requires a specific mechanical solution. This mechanical process of a localized unit returning from crude physical matter back to subtle consciousness is called involution. If evolution is the macrocosm's thought process expanding outward to form the physical universe, involution is the exact reversal of that journey. Reversing this sequence does not happen by accident. It requires systematically dissolving the specific binding factors that construct human existence. Spiritual liberation requires the precise, systemic deconstruction of the localized self, moving past the passive reliance on divine whim or belief. This schematic maps the structural limits of human existence, bound by 16 specific components known as the 16 kalas. We begin with a central node, the mind. From the mind, the system radiates outward into 10 channels, 5 sensory inputs and 5 motor outputs. Driving this machinery are the 5 internal vital airs, or prana. These act as the internal energy currents powering the physical and cognitive actions of the unit. The final structural factor encloses the entire net, holding the previous 15 active nodes together. As long as human desires are extrovertive, seeking objects of happiness outwardly in the material world, these 16 factors operate at full capacity. When energy flows continuously outward through these 16 channels, the individual remains structurally tethered to the physical cycle of creation. This tethering is governed by samskaras, acquired mental propensities, or reactive momenta. In this framework, desires act as structural deformations of the mind stuff, moving beyond the transient nature of thought. The mechanical rule of samskaras dictates that the mind automatically takes the shape of its most dominant, long-term pursuit. For instance, a mind shaped strictly by base desires alters its psychic medium. Over a lifetime, cultivating dog-like or swine-like cravings condenses the mind into that specific mental frame. Because the physical body is merely the vehicle for undergoing these acquired momenta, this altered psychic medium dictates the biological architecture of its next iteration. Physical limitation and rebirth are strictly deterministic outcomes. They are governed by the physics of mental momentum, rather than a cosmic judgment or moral scorecard. This strict mechanical reality presents a hurdle for those who attempt a purely intellectual approach to spirituality. Mastering non-dualistic philosophy or memorizing scriptures differs from actual realization. Cognitive comprehension is distinct from anubhuti, or intuitional susceptibility. Without that intuitional link, Brahma remains a bookish concept. Acquiring vast philosophical knowledge without applying it only inflates the vanity of the knower. This actively strengthens the ego, reinforcing the very boundary trapping the unit in the 16 kalas. The texts offer a precise analogy. Knowing an almanac's forecast for rain won't produce a drop of water to save a farmer's crops. No amount of squeezing the almanac will irrigate a field. Relying on intellectualism traps energy entirely within the mind's boundaries. Liberation requires an applied mechanical practice. That mechanical intervention is called sadhana, a combined effort of cognition, action, and devotion designed to draw energy inward. This diagram illustrates how this practice forces energy to ascend through specific regions of the body. These regions are governed by 3 qualitative influences, or gunas. The process begins by pulling energy up from the static quality, the tamaguna, below the navel, and moving it into the mutative quality of the rajaguna in the torso. As energy reaches the sentient quality, the sattvaguna, at the trikuti, or the junction of the eyebrows, the practitioner perceives the Supreme Being in a characteristic white radiance. But to reach the objectless absolute, the practitioner must push beyond the Trikuti, projecting energy through the Brahmarandra at the crown of the head. Piercing this aperture forces the mind into an objectless state, escaping all attributes, forms, and colors to exit the physiological and mental spheres entirely. When human desires are completely satiated by attaining the Supreme Spirit, the momenta of rebirth consume themselves. No samskaras remain to generate a future form. Looking back at our structural model, this triggers a systemic collapse. The 15 internal factors detach and merge back into their macrocosmic controlling forces. Without the engine of desire, the ego's boundary fades, and the unit dissolves into the vast supreme entity. This structural collapse defines final satiation. It permanently ends the cycle of life and death because the mechanical vehicle for rebirth no longer exists. A liberated consciousness does not simply blink out of existence, nor do they flee society for a Himalayan cave, a reaction the text explicitly diagnoses as a mental disease. Instead, they remain physically present in the world, surrounded by chaos, but operating purely as a tranquil, unattached witness. The Vedas compare this to the waters at Cape Comorin. The bay roars with restless waves, while the deep ocean beyond remains perfectly calm. The realized person views the complexity of the world, the friction of pleasure, pain, piety, and impiety, simply as a magic show. Because they know exactly how the cosmic trick works, they can interact with the physical world and even take part in the performance, while remaining perfectly unaffected by the illusion. This final state of unity is intimately tied to the concept of Omkara, the literal acoustic vibration of the Supreme Spirit's creative thought process. This sound is built from 3 frequencies that bind the universe: the seed of creation, A, the preservation of stability, U, and the catalyst for destruction, M. By pushing beyond these 3 operational frequencies, the unit consciousness silences the noise of its localized existence. The practitioner merges into the unconditioned nucleus that lies entirely beyond time and vibration. In this final beatitude, the localized individual completely dissolves the machinery of the self to become the supreme.